I hope you're having a wonderful week. I am back today with this is the fifth interview of my December Doing It series. In this series, I've been bringing on corporate badasses that I get the pleasure of working with every single week inside of my leadership path and my advanced programs. And when I connect with them in this way, I realize, oh, there's so much leadership wisdom and brilliance that they have that they're bringing into their organizations to really change the way leadership is done. And I wanted to showcase them on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and all the platforms so that you could also learn from them as well. And I want to encourage you to go back and listen to the other interviews in the series. I've made a convenient YouTube playlist that I'll link in the comments, and you can go back and watch all of our amazing corporate badasses. But today, I've got Diana Brassard, who's going to be sharing with us some of her leadership wisdom and a little bit more about her journey and how she got to where she is. So hi, Diana, welcome.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon.
Please take a minute to introduce yourself.
Well, hello, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm excited to talk with you today. My name is Diana. I am a PhD in biochemistry. I work in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. I've been working with you, Stacy, for over a year now. I'm very, very excited about the progress that I've made in my leadership skills and development. And excited to be here to talk with you about your speaker series.
Awesome.
And my leadership style.
So let's start with that. So can you describe to us what your leadership style is, what you're known for?
So thanks. One of the things I am most proud of in terms of my leadership style, or some of the examples that I've been the most proud of, are the times when I have successfully led from behind. I have had great mentors in my life, and I appreciate the times when they've let me successfully grow and develop in my own way in my roles, and had opportunities in those roles and responsibilities to grow in my own career as well. So from my perspective as a leader in my various roles and responsibilities, I've worked hard to create safe spaces for those who report to me and or matrix into my role, and I create a safe space for them to be able to grow and develop and sort of shine on their own. So I'm not always the lead per se, but I lead from behind.
And I know in your industry, you end up working with a lot of experts in their field, people who have their own PhDs and have worked really hard to get their knowledge and skills to the table. And so I think that's even more critical to be able to let them lead in the ways that they can lead, and then you lead them in your ways, and then you kind of both all meet in the middle.
That's very true. Yeah, a lot of it in my role, even as a project manager, project director, project leader, is trying to understand what the individual brings to the table, consultant, subject matter experts who try and ask the right questions to ensure that they are bringing 100% of their consultant or subject matter expertise to the table. And also trying to make sure that as an individual, not one voice is overshadowed by another voice. Sometimes you have extroverts at a table, diminishing, I'll just say, maybe that's too harsh, but overshadowing a strong introvert, and which does not mean that, it's not a positive, because the introvert can be just as much of a subject matter expert as the extrovert. So it's my role and my job, just as a leader, to ensure that everybody has the equal voice, or each role has its equal voice in the position. So
I think about when I think about women changing leadership, and this is a little bit of a stereotype, but one thing I think that us as women are really great at is reading the room and being able to see who's being included. I mean, this is one of my core values is inclusion as well, and really noticing, oh, that person hasn't been, like they have a lot of really great ideas, and I know that one on one. But I think it's an opportunity to allow their voices to shine and to be able to step up. And I think that's a really strong quality, often overlooked quality of leadership when we come from a different approach, which is more about proving ourselves, showing how smart we are, right? Like, really owning everything ourselves. And when we can do both, which is lead the team from behind and let their voices shine, but then also step up in areas where we need to shine. I think that's like the ultimate, the ultimate combination, especially for women in general, because we're good at it, right? Like it's like, it's something that we do naturally, we take for granted, but it's so important to really claim and own and say, this is what I do that's really great.
Yeah, so part of my career, oh, apologies. Yeah, no, I was going to say part of my career roles or responsibilities, I've had a few years in alliance management. And so a lot of that responsibility was paying attention not just to the contribution, but also the messaging or the intention of what the other party had intended to contribute, or what they were gaining or not gaining out of the interaction. So sort of an empathy perspective.
Oh
and so
my
that has
God, I
really played
love
a lot
that.
of, yeah,
Yeah, that's
a
really
lot,
great.
even today.
Yeah, so good. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about your background. Did you always want to go into biopharma? Like, has this been a dream of yours being a leader in this space? And, tell us a little bit more about how you got started.
Great question. Yeah, I was always very influenced by women leaders. First, it was the nurses, Clara Bow and Florence Nightingale, for some reason. And then when I was like 12, 13, I was very influenced by Diane Fossey and Jane Goodall. I sort of got to the point where I'm like, I'm not sure I want to go to Africa. So, but I was really impressed by their ability to be such leaders in their field. And I sort of got to the point where I'm like, oh, I can just be a PhD and be, someone who just sort of revolutionizes something that people know very little about. So when I got to high school, I wanted to be a PhD. I was thinking it was going to be in chemistry. I got to college, and it was sort of my second week in college, and then there was this halo effect when I heard the words biochemistry. The word biochemistry was like, oh. So I sort of walked into biochemistry my first or second week in college, and then I went to grad school. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
I love it. That is so good. I love that story. My daughter got a game for Christmas, and it's like the Guess Who game, but it's called Who's She, and it's all of these famous women pioneers. And I could tell that while she was doing it and looking at it and learning about all of these different women in history that have really changed the game for so many other women, that she was seeing herself, right? She was asking herself, like, how, where, what am I interested in? What do I want to change? What, and then, and then she made some comment about, she's like, Mommy, you could be in this book, or you could be in this game. And I was like, oh, but this is what we want,
Yeah,
right? We want to make that impact.
totally. Yeah. I mean, you don't always see yourself as an influence, but it's totally true. Representation makes a difference.
Yeah. So, so as you're leading the team, as you're leading from behind, working with all these experts in their field, it's not always easy situations. As I mean, I think always in business, it's never easy. Change is the one constant. But in terms of leading your team through difficult situations, pivoting, what are some of the tools and the skills that you really rely on to be able to do that?
One of the biggest tools that I utilize is open communication or transparency, especially around communication. So, again, a lot of that is primarily based on the roles and responsibilities that I've had with prior positions in the industry that I've held, have had heavy interaction in terms of communication, either written or verbal. A lot of roles and a lot of lessons learned discussion, a lot of trying to clarify and or confirm what the lessons learned were, ensuring we have harmonized agreement on the lessons learned, or even the issues and the risks. Because when it comes to the teams and the cross-functional nature of the teams that I work on, you want to make sure everybody's aligned on what the risk is, what the issue is, what the next steps in the action items are. So, in my role, a lot of what I do cross-functionally is to keep everybody on track and on point regarding who's responsible for what.
Yeah, I like what you said about risks and being able to communicate risk and obstacles ahead of time. And I think that's such an important trait because so many leaders will hide behind the risks and like not want to talk about them or not feel inclined to bring them up too early for fear of it might happen. It's like, no, we have to put everything on the table and have a conversation about it. And then I think when we do that, when we lead in that way, it allows people to step up both when things are not going well, but also when they are going well to really own it. Like, oh, we didn't have any of these obstacles that we thought about ahead of time. It's great. That's a wonderful thing, right?
Well, and risks are really tricky um, because often when you have somebody who is new to the industry or new to the project, they will see a risk as, risk A, or, the root cause to them is something very basic. But in general, the root cause can be something very, very complicated, and it can be much more of a deeper issue or systemic issue than problem A. So it requires sometimes a lot of discussion to make sure that really the root cause is problem X and not topic A, to make sure that you're really properly identifying what the root cause is. And that's an honest and thoughtful, thorough conversation that you really need to have with the appropriate leaders in the team. And it's not fun. But it's actually important because it level sets, it brings some of the really junior people up to speed to say, instead of pointing fingers, well, Joe did that and Joan did this, and it's only problem A. But no, actually the senior leaders can say, well, actually this is really a systemic problem, and it's actually not Joe's or John's problem. It's actually a project bigger than project X. It's this bigger problem. We have a systemic problem. It actually is really a maturity thing that you can make it a thoughtful conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like when you can do that, it takes the emotion out of it, right? I can't imagine that all of your projects come to completion through no fault of yours, right? Like, it's like for whatever reason, maybe it didn't work out the same way or there's changes that happen. And so if you can sort of have that mature conversation up front, or at least have the leadership style to say, this is how I work. This is, I'm not going to hide behind this. I want to get to the root cause of whatever's happening here. Then other people can get on board and move forward, even if like, oh my God, I just spent 6 months on that project and it's not even going to happen. We have to pivot. It's like, well, it's not because you did something wrong. It's because of this or that, right? You can really point to, and so you can move forward.
Right. Well, in my industry, actually, the norm, it's normal for projects to fail.
Mm.
People have emotion to try to prevent them from failing, and that's also something that you need to manage, is the emotion. And so you need to make sure that they understand the sort of realities and help them manage their emotions as well.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this with when you were talking about, women pioneers. But why do you feel personally motivated to have that voice at the table, to be included in the conversation, and to really offer guidance and support, like at the top, right? Be the decision maker.
That's a great question. I really feel that personally that change is something that has to take place regardless of what industry you're in, whether or not you're in a small organization or a large organization. And it's sort of like the risk assessment concept where, um, people don't always see the bigger picture or don't always understand um, the full ramifications of certain decisions. I'm not always fully aware of everything, but I want to always be able to commit and be a part of the discussion because I feel that those discussions are what help ensure the probability of success for the organization. Um, I like I want my companies or my organizations to be successful, and I want to be a part of that success. So that's I want to have a voice at the table. I want to be a part of ensuring that success, and I want to be proactive about finding solutions that are positive um, and find helpful ways of moving forward.
I just thought of something as you were talking when we were talking about risk and being over communicative about risks and challenges and obstacles, creating the framework for, a lot of projects are going to fail. Like this is part of the process. You have to be informed. Like you cannot lead from behind if you're not informed. You cannot lead from the front if you're not informed. You cannot lead about risks if you're not informed. And so if you don't have that voice at the table, you're also not being included, right? And so that inhibits your
Right.
ability to lead the way that you want to lead what's true to you if you can't be included, right? So it's yes, I want to offer input, I want to drive solutions, I want to create, like out good positive outcomes, but if you don't have that information, it's hard to do any of that.
That's true. Yes, very true. Yeah. Yeah. One of my friends, I think I've told you, one of my friends says that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So yeah, you have to be a
Yeah, exactly.
part of the solution. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
totally agree
totally,
with that.
because
Yeah.
you're being reactionary, right? You can't actually participate. So, as you've stepped up in your leadership, I am sure there's organizations that you've been gotten involved with. I know that sometimes you play the role of mentor for other individuals. So, can you tell us more about how you're giving back as a leader and any of the organizations that you're involved with? I'd love to. I think this has been my most eye-opening part of these December Doing It series is really learning more about the women and the different organizations that are out there. There's so many incredible, powerful ways that that people are supporting other women in leadership.
Yeah, so I've done mentoring in a few different ways. A couple of my companies have had mentoring programs that I've participated in. I've also done um, like offhand mentoring for um, direct reports or line reports. Um, you know, it, in a manner that's sort of not there's no system. But what I've been doing actually the most lengthy and systematic mentoring that I've been managed or been involved with for the last, I think 5 to 7 years, I lose track, is with the HBA women's program. It's a Healthcare Business Women's Association mentoring program. They have what's called a mentoring circle. So it's a really awesome program where we do 2 mentors with 4 mentees. So the circle has 6 people. And in addition to the circle of 6, you have a connector, and then you have a bunch of other resources and people who come in to support the circles. And you start in March and it goes until October. So generally we'll meet either, the circles meet however long or however frequently the circles want to meet, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks. And you have topics that are selected by the individuals in the circle. They range from leadership to negotiation. And then the HBA gives resources that support the topics for the discussion. And each year the circles are different in terms of which topics they want to discuss, and the interactions between the circles are different. Before COVID, we would meet in person and have lovely interactions either at restaurants or in different conference rooms in Cambridge, which is where I work and live. But since COVID, we switched to virtual. So I think next year is going to be a toss-up between virtual and in person. But it's really, for me, it's a fascinating and awesome experience because, the conversations, even if it's a identical topic to something we've discussed in prior years, the discussions are always new and different because the 4 women and the other coach is always different. And the conversations and the questions and the discussions have different perspectives, and always just a delight. I learn something new, or it's something I gain out of it, and it's just a joy.
I love it. That's wonderful. And I feel like,
Yeah.
as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh, I need to do that. Oh, wait, I should call that person back. And I think that's really important. And that's really what I want to offer with the, this December doing it with the speaker series is different examples of leadership. I often say that it's difficult for us as women to envision ourselves in those higher level leadership positions because we don't have really great role models, right? We don't have the people who are succeeding in those higher level positions, who are mentoring, who are joining these organizations, who are changing leadership in different ways. And I want to give people opportunities to see various different sides of leadership so that they can start to see themselves in these people. Like you said, representation matters. So, thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for being here. And we actually have a bonus episode coming out next week. I'll be doing another interview. I know it'll be January, but I had so many women that I wanted to talk to this time. So all of the interviews are at the same time, Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. And then you can also find them on our YouTube playlist. Thank you so much, Diana. I appreciate it. I know everybody else does as well.
Thank you. Have a great day. Happy holidays.